chapter on Monday. My plan is to add some information rather than go over things that were in the chapter, because I thought it would be interesting to have a look at some other concepts and also look at the nutritional state of people that live in this county, in Roosevelt County, and also in New Mexico. So I've got that information to share because I thought that would be interesting, that you can read the nutrition stuff, and I don't think that there's, I don't know, maybe there was information in the chapter that you weren't aware of. Anybody got any questions or thoughts on the chapter before I get going? Oh, didn't turn this on. That's why no one's talking to me. Hello. Any questions on the chapter? So I don't think you heard what I just said because I think my microphone was off. So I'm going to, rather than go over anything in the chapter, I'm going to add some information. I thought it would be interesting to look at Roosevelt County, where we're situated, and also look at New Mexico as a state and look at the nutritional situation for individuals that are here in this state. So I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this chapter. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts on what they read? Was there anything new that you didn't know about?
No, not really.
Not really? It just supported stuff you already thought? Okay, so, all right. Well, it looks like it's just us. So let's have a look here. This other info. Okay, so this is a bit of a messy slide, but I wanted to get, probably should have made the font a little bit smaller. I wanted to give you this list as well. I don't think that they cover this list in the chapter. So dietary guidelines from the CDC or the American Dietetic Association. There's a couple of different places you could go to look for this. Also, you could look at the DHHS, which is the Department for Health and Human Services. They have lots of information on physical activity guidelines and nutrition guidelines as well. So I wanted to give you this list because there's a couple of ideas in here that I think are really important. That really what we're trying to do is to create the habit of healthy eating across the lifespan, all right? So it's not that I have to eat food that tastes boring, right? The healthy food doesn't have to be boring food. And the lifetime of healthy eating doesn't mean that I can take a week off and go on holiday and completely blow, eat anything I like for a week. That's not what this is saying. It's the overall picture, the overall habit of your eating patterns that's important. And there's a clear link between what we eat and certain chronic diseases, particularly type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. And so we've got this opportunity to look at our diet, right? The word diet is misused often to mean something that's low calorie, right? That's not really the true definition of the word. The word diet is a word that encompasses your food intake, okay? And what the guidelines are trying to do is provide this kind of pathway, this very clear idea, these very clear points that we can check off to eat in a critical and informed manner, right? So we don't have to, as I said, it doesn't mean that I can't eat ice cream. It just means I don't eat ice cream every day, right? And one of the important points that I wanted to highlight here is number 4, where it talks about, it's very important to eat a variety of vegetables and fruits and grains, dairy if you can, different kinds of proteins. I know the book talked about tuna, for example. Tin tuna is a very cheap source of excellent protein. And you can stir fry it, you can add it to pasta sauce, you can put it in a salad. I mean, it's very versatile as well. And the other thing I wanted, or one of the other things I wanted to point out, was 5, 6, and 7. All right, so 5, 6, and 7 are talking about limiting certain items from your diet. So you want to limit added sugar. Right? So you want to look at, for example, if you like yogurt and you eat yogurt, look at the yogurt. Look at the ingredient list on the yogurt. How much added sugar is there? And for example, if you like strawberry yogurt, then could you consider changing to buying fresh or frozen strawberries and adding them to plain yogurt, because then you don't have any added sugar. You only have the sugars that are in, like the lactose in the yogurt. Does lactose still exist in yogurt, or is that, okay? Don't know enough about making yogurt. And you've got the sugar that's in the natural strawberries, but you don't have added sugar in there, right? We want to limit saturated and trans fats, not cut them out completely. Okay? It's important to eat fat in your diet. It's an important component of membranes and other things, hormones and things in our body. So we have to have some fat. And we're not saying, no one's saying eliminate animal products that are high in saturated fat. They're just saying limit them, don't eat them every day, right? And limit sodium. I'm a bad one there because I can literally stick my finger in the salt pot and suck it. So I'm bad with my sodium. I don't follow that guideline, I have to say. So the idea is, rather than asking people to make this dramatic change to their lifestyle and their eating habits, can we do little things that don't have a psychological, it doesn't seem like a barrier to eating well, but they might have quite significant impacts on the quality of your diet and how healthy that diet is, right? So we have to include physical activity here if we're looking to be
holistically well and healthy. It's not just changing our diet, so it's a little bit of change in our diet and a little bit of extra physical activity. Right. So we want to start to consider our role, right? When you go out into the workplace, you'll have a voice, right? If you work somewhere where the only drink machine provides sugary soda and there's no water fountain, for example, or they don't have a drink dispenser that has water available as well as sugary soda, then you can speak up and say, no, that's not okay. Right? We have these huge problems in schools where the kids can just, buy sodas, and that's something we have to try to change that mentality of providing soda to providing fruit juice and water, right? Because soda's just evil. I mean, there's nothing beneficial about soda. It has no good qualities at all, other than it's got some water in it, and so it helps hydrate a little bit, right? But you're better off drinking fizzy water if you want a fizzy drink, right? And one of the nice things now is there's such a range of fizzy waters that have flavorings but no sugar in them, right? So I don't have to drink just water. I can drink watermelon and blackberry water, right? Or pick a flavor that you like, right? So I found this very cool tool. You may or may not have seen it. The New Mexico Department of Health has some excellent resources at their website. And they also have a whole section that is called Healthy Kids New Mexico, which I like a lot. I use quite a lot of their information from there. And they have this challenge that they've set up called the 5210 challenge that you could use with your own children, or you could use with the students in your PE class or at your rec center if you go and work in a rec center. So the 5210 challenge is set up to help motivate children to alter their eating and physical activity patterns. So it's trying to give the children the power to make the change, right? Rather than it always being the adult that's trying to impose a change on the children. Can we teach them different habits early on? And one of the things I think is quite interesting is try to apply the challenge to yourself one day, right? Maybe look at it today and then go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to meet the 5210 because it says it's for children, but actually I think it could be applied to anybody, right? So here's how the challenge works. The 5 represents, so we have Yazzie there. Yazzie says you have to eat 5 or more fruits and vegetables a day. Okay? And the challenge is based on information from the American Academy of Pediatrics and their recommendations to improve children's health. One of the other tools that they often use in preschool and elementary school is a color approach. Have you eaten every color this week? Right? So blue, red, green, yellow, orange. Have you eaten every color? Okay? So that's another way. And you could combine both of these ideas, I think. So our 5 is 5 or more fruits and vegetables a day. The 2 is Carlita Coyote. And Carlita says, trim your screen time down to 2 hours a day. So your texting, your social media, your television, so you know if you know that you're going to watch a film on Saturday night with your partner, then Saturday during the day you've got to be a little bit disciplined about how much time you spend on your phone or iPad or other piece of equipment, right? 2 hours of screen time a day. It's a little bit difficult if we include our computer screen in there as adults. So if I was using this, or at least the idea of this, I probably wouldn't use the characters. I don't know, it would depend who I was working with, I guess. But if I'm going to use this idea with an adult, I would probably make this 2 hours, not include working on my computer, right? Because if I'm grading, or if you guys are writing a paper, or taking class, I don't think that should count, that can't count as adults, right? Betty Bobcat represents number 1, and Betty says to move more, be active for at least 1 hour a day, so a minimum of 1 hour of physical activity. And that's actually lower than the Society for Health and Physical Education recommendations, because they would say 2 hours. But again, you know, it's aimed at giving children a usable tool, something that seems achievable, manageable, right? And the 0 actually is oxygen. Hop Rabbit says drink lots of water every day. So eat 5 or more fruits and vegetables, trim screen time to 2 hours, move for at least an hour, and drink lots of water. All very good ideas, and again, it's trying to challenge children to develop habits that can then be carried forward and lay the foundation for a more healthy life. And then Dinky says, just give it a go. Just try it. You never know, you might enjoy it. I love raccoons. They're scoundrels, but they are so funny to watch.
I agree.
Yeah, we were camping, well, I guess it wasn't last year because we didn't do anything last year, it must have been the year before. We were driving up to Milwaukee and we were camping along the way in state parks. And one of the parks we stopped at, we were in a really beautiful wood forest kind of area. And in the middle of the night, we heard all this noise and we got up. And those little raccoons were climbing up the trees, trying to pull down our bear bags, get out our rubbish. It was quite funny. I have to say, they did make a bit of a mess that we had to clear up, but it was amusing. Okay, so let's have a look at the situation right here where many of us live. And I'm generalizing a little bit with these statistics because, bless you, the statistics are for the southeast region of New Mexico, but Roosevelt County is in the southeast region. So, you know, the numbers might be a little bit off for the county as a whole because we're actually compared to many counties around us, we're actually quite wealthy because of the university and the dairies here. But the picture is true for our area, let's say. So the numbers are a little bit disturbing. 26% of adults So a quarter, just over a quarter of adults live in a household where the overall income is less than $20,000. Right? So that's not just the adult, it's the household is bringing in less than $20,000 a year. Right? That's not very much money. That's very, very little money. About 22%, so just under a quarter of adults did not finish high school. So they've got less than a high school education, and you can go and find this information for yourself, but there is tons of research that shows that your level of education is closely related to your level of health and your dietary intake, which is always odd to me. You would think that if you didn't have much money, you would want to eat cheaply, but the version of cheap food that people tend to eat is fast food or frozen meals, right? Rather than a baked potato with some tuna and some cheese, right? Which would cost less than the frozen meal anyway, right? What you have to remember is that for many of these people, it's not just about money and education, it's time. Because they may not be earning very much, but they could well be doing 3 jobs, right? And so the cheating on the food by getting fast food or frozen meals is a way to make sure that at least the kids are eating something because they don't have time to cook anything, right? Again, just under a quarter of adults in the southeast region, so, you know, consider Roosevelt County, have only what would be classified as fair's kind of top whack. Most of them have poor general health status. Okay? So, income and education are 2 of the key factors in the development of overweight and obesity. So when we look at populations who are overweight, you're much more likely to become overweight or obese if you're in a low socioeconomic group, right? Or if you are in a low educated group, all right? So about a third of adults are obese in this area. Only around 11 to 12% are diagnosed with diabetes, but when you look at that number and go, if we've got a third of adults who are obese, how come we only have 11% of adults who are type 2 diabetic? You've got to remember that the majority of these adults don't have health care. So it's not that only 11% of them are type 2 diabetics, it's that they can't afford to go to the doctor or the clinic and be diagnosed as type 2 diabetic, right? It's expensive to go and get medical care here, right? The longer I live here, the more I am in awe of the NHS at home, even though it's a mess. You know, you don't have to be worried about money in the UK and in many places in Europe. You just go to the doctor. It doesn't cost anything, right? So that's a big problem here, and it is expensive. Even with insurance, it's expensive to go, right? So you've got to take that into account. It's highly likely that that number is way off. It's going to be much, much higher than In this area of New Mexico, our leading cause of death is heart disease, which is closely tied with overweight, obesity, and poor diets. We also have the highest cancer rate, but interestingly, we have lower respiratory, chronic respiratory disease issues over here, which is bizarre to me because we all suffer with dreadful allergies over here because of the wind and the dust and the cotton and everything else, but that's what the stats say. In New Mexico as a whole, 1 in 4, so again a quarter of the adults who are 45 years or older are diagnosed with at least 2 chronic diseases, right? So high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, or obesity and cardiovascular disease, right? So it's costing a lot of money. It costs the individual a lot of money, and it costs the population a lot of money because, you know, if you're healthy, you still have to pay health insurance, right? Even if you don't use your health insurance, okay? So it's very easy for us to go, not my problem, I'm not obese, right? I have a college degree, not my problem. But it is, because it impacts you financially in other ways, even if it doesn't impact you from a society, from a community perspective. So there are some really good websites, as I mentioned. The New Mexico Department of Health has lots of information if you're interested in the state, and I would think that other states' Department of Health websites would have similar kind of info available. They have a surveillance system in place because the obesity rates in children in New Mexico is quite scary. There's also healthypeople.gov that has, I'll talk to you in a minute about housing instability, because this is part of the problem. You know, if the household is earning less than $20,000 a year, where are they living? Right? And so about 6% of 9th to 12th grade children live in unstable housing. That can be unstable for several reasons. It doesn't have, housing instability doesn't have a clear standard definition. Depends where you look. It can be having trouble paying the rent. So what are the challenges that are involved within that household? Are they staying with relatives? Is more than 50% of their income being spent on their living place, which doesn't leave very much money left to buy good quality foods, right? Are they overcrowded? Are they moving regularly? I mean, it's quite interesting driving around town. You know, you'll see people move into an empty rental property, spend a lot of effort trying to make that rental property be nice and be home, and then 2 months later they're gone, right? So there's this very influx kind of living scenario for these children. 20% of children are hospitalized due to asthma. So that could be because the parents are smoking, or it could be because they're living somewhere where there's a lot of crop spraying going on, things like that. Now, the data for overweight and obesity for children isn't split up by region. So we're looking at New Mexico as a state here. There is information by race for K versus third grade, but not by region, unfortunately. So what we see is that for girls in kindergarten, so they check them in kindergarten and then they check them again in third grade, we've got 14% overweight, 15% obesity, so almost 30% overweight obesity for girls, and nearly 33% overweight obesity for boys. And one of the things you have to watch for when you're looking at these statistics, because New Mexico does the same thing, they'll say, well, we're doing well because our 30% of kindergartens, right, 5-year-old, 30% of 5-year-old girls are overweight or obese. It's shocking, it's shocking. But what they'll say is, well, we're doing well because our 30% is staying stable. So over the last 3 years, our 30% hasn't changed. But, it's a big but, when you look at the data carefully, what you will notice is that the obesity percentage is going up and the overweight percentage is going down. So the problem's getting worse, not better. Just because we're maintaining 30% doesn't mean we're dealing with the problem, because the problem is getting worse, right? More of our overweight kids are transitioning into the obese category. Nothing's changing, everything's getting worse, right? You know, and it's tempting to look at an overweight or obese young child. I mean, if you go to Walmart, you see them all the time. Massive young children, little and wide, and waddling, right? So they can't move properly because their legs are so big that they can't put their feet together, right? So they have to walk like this, okay? So we've got an impact on their motor skills, which impacts their ability to be physically active, which impacts their ability to tackle being overweight or obese, right? And the worrying thing is that, again, the data, the research clearly shows that obese children tend to become obese adults for many reasons, but the lack of motor competency is a big one. The lack of healthy eating habits is a big one, right? So we've set these children up because the children aren't in charge, right? The child didn't make itself obese. Unless it has a medical problem, right, a genetic medical problem, the adults made that child obese. And that child, now it's obese, is likely to be obese for the rest of its life. And the health concerns that go with that are significant, right? So it's really frustrating that we're not tackling the problem properly. And it's not just New Mexico, right? New Mexico might have one of the highest overweight obesity numbers for this age children, but it's not just New Mexico. Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. Okay. So we have some very cool programs though. FeedingAmerica.org, I've got a link here if you want to have a look at that, it's fascinating. You know, we often hear about children being hungry in other countries, particularly if there's a famine or if there's a war going on. But you would be amazed at the food map, at the data on children in America, right? So there is a Food for Kids weekend backpack program, right, which is a little bit unnerving, that the chance is that they only really eat at school, and so that means that Saturday and Sunday they're not getting very much food, and so this program sends the children home with a backpack with food in it for the weekend. In New Mexico, about a quarter of the children, so less than 18, are what we call food insecure. And food insecurity means that they're not getting regular meals. The national average is 17.5, so we're significantly higher than the national average. Okay. We've got a very high percentage of students who qualify for either free or reduced price food at school. Half of New Mexico is considered a food desert. And a food desert is an area where either the people don't have a car and the supermarket is not within 1 mile. So that's considered, if it's within a mile, it's considered walkable, right? But if the supermarket is further than a mile away and you don't have a car, then that's considered a food desert. Right? Again, there's lots of information on food deserts. New Mexico is not the only area of the country that has large parts of it that are considered food deserts. You know, we've also got the fact that on top of not eating very well, lots of New Mexico schools struggle to provide adequate PE for their children. About 25% of children in New Mexico attend PE on a daily basis. A lot of them only get PE once a week. It's not enough. It's not enough. No wonder we're not tackling the obesity problem, right? So, you know, I'm not moving. I'm not eating very much. I can't concentrate in school because I'm hungry. Therefore, my academic record is also very poor, and I don't finish school, right? So you can start to see that all these variables interact with each other to create a very poor picture of health in the state. So, that's the info I had for you. And as I said, if you don't live in New Mexico, your Department of Health in your state would have similar information that you could get to find out what's going on in your home state. And that's what I had for you. Because I think it's fascinating, though scary. Right? And those of you, particularly those of you that come into the HPE program and come play with us for the next couple of years, then, you know, you guys are going to be the ones who go out with the knowledge to change the picture. Right? We have to change the picture. We've got to do something about PE and recess in school, and we've got to do something about nutritional intake and people having access to good housing and good food. I don't know the answer. I only know the problem, right? But it's going to take an army of people who care about health and wellness to go out there and make some changes, in my opinion.
just in wait.
It's a bit nerve-wracking, isn't it, when you see these numbers?
I actually do have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like, well, it's not kind of relevant, but to this topic, but so we do have presentations, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it in class or
Yeah.
when Friday?
No, end of the semester.
Oh, it's a
It's it's your final.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Okay, now Friday we have a fun activity at Walmart. Unfortunately, since I can't actually take you to Walmart this semester, we're going to do it at walmart.com, which isn't quite as much fun as all of us gallivanting around Walmart in town, but it still hopefully will give you some ideas of how to use your very small pennies to feed yourselves well.
So what if we're in town? Can we still like go to Walmart?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want, I mean, especially now, some of you, here's the other thing, guys, New Mexico is opening up to everybody over the age of 16 will have the opportunity to go get vaccinated. So I strongly, strongly recommend that as soon as you have the opportunity, you go and get vaccinated. But no, that's a good point. If you are near a Walmart, and most of us are, let's face it, Walmart kind of smothers the land mass. Then no, you could certainly go and do it in the Walmart for real rather than online. It's a lot more fun doing it for real.
Cool beans.
Cool beans! I might check actually if maybe I'll go to Walmart and those of you that are in town could come and meet me there and we could go play in Walmart for half an hour.
Hey, yes, ma'am.
Okay? Anything else? All right, well have a lovely day. I'm hoping it's going to snow all day, but it probably won't. It's probably stopped already because we really, really need the moisture. And I'll see you Friday.